Hello everyone. Hello everyone. As I understand, stream has begun. I'm online. I welcome all of you, dear friends, that are participating in this stream. Fourth stream on our channel, and program for this stream is basically the same as before. Because it's Sunday, probably it is appropriate to kind of summarize previous week main events, some of the main events, and also, of course, there can be no stream without conversation about situation in and around Ukraine, also Southern Caucasus region. There are some developments, and just about a few hours ago, we did learn some information about relationships, escalation in the relationships between France and Niger. I will share some information about it, and of course, situation in Serbia. Some escalation also are taking place in Kosovo, unrecognized republic, and as usually, I will actively monitor chat, and of course I will look for questions or comments on donation alert. And if I see any question, of course I will answer. And whenever you send any question or donation or comment through donation alert, it will appear on the screen. It will appear on the screen, and there will be some sound also, if I'm not mistaken, supposed to be. I was planning to turn off that sound, but I did not manage. That's gonna be task for the next update and or next live stream. And once again, welcome. I welcome you all. Let me see how many of us. It's 44 members of our community right now on the stream, which is good start. Dear friends, as you probably notice, I'm making these streams in different times, and I do that to find out which is optimal time, which is the optimal time for you, for members of our community. And one more topic about this donation alert stuff. You can see link of donation alerts under the video in the description box, and you don't need to sign up or register or anything. It's not necessary. You are signing up if you are creating page on donation alert. Otherwise, you can write your comment and send it without issues. And I guess we are ready to begin. I already see a question. Can you Belikov Dmitry is asking, can you talk about ancient Russia, Kievan Rus? Of course, after several news, please, Dmitry, remind me if I forget about question. And Blue Bear is also asking anything new about the German tank crew. No. I was monitoring informations. There were many news about Leopard 2s and the Swedish STRV 122 tanks, and those tanks are, by the way, based on Leopard 2s. Difference is that Swedish versions have better protection, but gun is supposed to be a little bit weaker than let's say Leopard 2 A6 tank. But one of the members of our community, if I'm not mistaken, did give me additional information that the latest model of Leopard 2 A7 is supposed to have as much protection, as much armor as Swedish STRV. But when it comes to crew of that German tank, I was looking for additional information, but I did not see any, and I guess because this was exclusive for RIA Novosti, it's up to this news agency to share additional information, and it will not happen if Moscow is not willing to aggravate relationship with Berlin, because it's a serious claim, isn't it? If current members of Bundeswehr, German armed forces, are participating on the ground in a military conflict with Russia. So it, I guess, it depends on a decision of Kremlin, really, because issue is extremely serious, and I'm kind of surprised that RIA Novosti even shared that kind of information, but well, because RIA Novosti is a state-run news agency, I guess administration of president's administration probably were in communication with the RIA Novosti, and if a decision was made to share with public such information, then I guess there will be some follow-up. It's just logical to assume that there will be some follow-up news and possibly statements from Moscow. And let me go through several news, by the way, if I may. So I guess you would not be against just several news, and of course we can have a conversation, friendly chat. So TASS news agency did report just about a few hours ago that President of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, had a press conference, and he did made a statement that Kosovo's police shot and killed 3 Serbs, and two Serbs were wounded as during escalation, as I understand, in the northern part of Kosovo. During the day, we were receiving some contradicting informations about escalation on the northern part of Kosovo, and some independent channels did report that Kosovo's police or secret services conducted some false flag operation. Some armed people were acting against Kosovo's police, and there was some report that one policeman was killed, and then as a retaliation Kosovo's police went in and there was some kind of shootout. But anyway, because we are talking about Kosovo, by the way, major military base of NATO in Serbia's land, in Serbia's territory, which is not controlled by Serbia for now. Because it's NATO base, I don't think local authorities in Pristina is capital of Kosovo, will conduct such operations without permission or even order from Brussels. So maybe Western so-called elites are planning some big escalation against Serbia, and if that's the case, then most likely Kosovo will be used to provoke Serbia, and then it will be only a matter of time, and I guess NATO forces will try to finish what they began some 2 decades ago when they were bombing and destroying Serbia. Very serious developments. Let's hope this crisis will die down, but they are high risk. They are high risk that Western so-called elites, Washington, London, Brussels, Berlin, by the way, which is actively involved in internal affairs of Balkans, may have some other plans to escalate. And by the way, RIA Novosti is reporting that already there are some statements made in Western Europe about bombing of Serbia immediately. And for example, someone under the name of Günther Fellinger, who is head of NGO European Committee for расширение NATO, European Committee for let me translate this name of this NGO, for NATO enlargement. That's name itself does says volume, isn't it? So someone who is the head of this NGO, European Committee for NATO enlargement, this Günther Fellinger already made a statement that NATO supposed to begin bombing Serbia and Belgrade, by the way, right now. He is basically demanding NATO's involvement in this crisis around Kosovo and bombings of Serbia, which is, I don't know, man. You tell me, how crazy is that? Without knowing what happened, without investigation or any additional information, when someone is demanding such actions, that's definitely crazy. And maybe these kind of statements are just part of a bigger game that we are not yet seeing. But situation is escalating constantly around Serbia, because I guess Western elites are fed up with this constant struggle of Serbia for its sovereignty and independence, and they want full control over the Belgrade. So that's one news, by the way, that I was planning to share with you. And also Interfax is reporting, and by the way, on my Telegram I did share some informations, not just some, but quite a lot of informations. For example, France is recalling its ambassador from Niger and the entire staff of the embassy, and also that was stated by Emmanuel Macron, president of France. And also, according to Macron, French forces, military forces, will withdraw from Niger before end of this year. Yet again, escalation between two countries, and whenever ambassador and entire staff of embassy is withdrawn from country, that usually means that that usually is taken as an indicator of upcoming further escalation, even war. And that's why I take this information very seriously. Let's hope French government will not make such a mistake and would not try to escalate with Niger, because in that case entire Western Africa may end up being distracted and being engulfed in the regional conflicts. So, well, I don't know what Macron and his surrounding, his inner circle is planning and thinking of, but well, let's hope they're not gonna escalate with Niger. What today, by the way, almost all news is about some kind of escalation all around the world, which is quite unfortunate, but that's the times that we are living right now. And well, let me check some comments in the chat now. Let me check donation alerts. Nothing here. So where is the chat? And well, Dmitry was asking about Kievan Rus. Well, Kievan Rus is the first name, one may say, of Russia, and Kiev was capital, by the way. Name Rus itself, linguists may have some different opinions, but as far as I know, Rus, that name, comes from Finno-Ugrian people that were also living in that area, and that name of those Rus people eventually end up being name of entire population in that area, and the name of Russians. has begun its roots from those people, Finno-Ugrian people. But yet again, I'm not a linguist, by the way. I'm not a historian. This is just what I read. Well, Kiev, that's why there is saying in Russia, Kiev is a mother of all Russian cities. Kiev is a Russian city, by the way. And even though right now it's controlled by anti-Russian forces, it's only a matter of time, I believe, and Kiev will be back in Russian world. Also questions. Maybe I need really glasses to. What about Emil Kosman's suggestion? Oh. Well, I would not go in some conspiracies, by the way. I do watch Emil Kosman's channel. I don't know nothing about this opinion of his, but you can see Emil Kosman's channel's link in the description box, in the recommendation link. Random guy is asking, be honest, bro, do you think Russia can win this war? Well, in my understanding, Russia already did won this war against so-called Western elites. It's only a matter of time when this victory will be formalized. Also, questions. So John Dickinson is saying maybe Swiss core troops can help out in Serbia. Well, if Brussels, Washington, and London or Berlin are keen to escalate against Serbia, then I don't think anyone at this point can stop them. Is Russia winning? Of course, by the way, if you are watching Western or reading just Western media outlets, you may have different opinion and very different information. But if you are looking for additional information on independent pages, then you will know that, for example, this highly anticipated so-called counteroffensive of Kiev regime is a total failure. You probably know already that Russian side did neutralize not just one army of Kiev regime that it had in the beginning of special military operation, but now it's a third, basically, army that have been neutralized very before our eyes. This is not a movie, isn't it? This is very serious stuff, and well, one may asking these operations to take place in very rapid pace, but it's not happening like that. It will take time. This is attrition war, and one of the main tasks for Russian side right now is to deplete as much as possible military capabilities of Kiev regime, and once that will be achieved, then Russian side will become significantly active, I believe, and we will see some decisive moves from Moscow and Russian armed forces. But we should always remember that right now, against Russia, almost all NATO member states are involved one way or another. And can you imagine any other country that would withstand such a pressure? Just if we will think about it. And John, Okay, I do understand now. John is saying that he was sarcastic about Swiss Quo. I was kind of surprised also, because Swiss is supposed to be, I don't know, neutral state. I don't think they are involved in any military operations anywhere. But I may be mistaken. I know Swiss guards are securing Vatican, but other than that, I'm not sure if Swiss forces are involved in anywhere. Formally, they still are, or supposed to be, neutral. And by the way, let me check once again donation alert. Nothing here. So, if I may, I will share with you some additional news. And meanwhile, I will share with you information that these days I was trying to learn how to operate with some additional programs, which will be necessary to when I will start to inviting guests. I did learn something, but not enough yet. Not enough yet, but well, I hope in next week or two I will manage to learn well enough those programs, how to operate with those programs, so that I will be able to invite guests. And my idea is to have a guest on let's say Wednesday, and have a live stream on Sundays. And live streams will be this format. We will talk about news, we will have a chat. It's kind of casual style. So, but I have big hopes about those interviews, because you know, that way I will begin to do some real journalism, by the way. And I did mention in previous streams that I do love doing interviews. During my career in journalism, well, I did probably conducted, I don't know, man, hundreds, thousands of interviews. So it will be nice to remember my younger days. And well, let's continue with news. So TASS news agency is reporting that Russian forces destroyed two Swiss STRV-122 tanks. I did spoke about this. These tanks were destroyed on the northern sectors of the front line. And well, as I mentioned, this is, by the way, how these tanks look. It's like it does look similar to Leopard 2s, Leopard 2 A6, let's say. It just has a little better armor, supposed to have better armor, and gun is supposed to be a little bit weaker, maybe because of the length of the gun. It's a little shorter than probably shorter than let's say Leopard 2 A6 or Leopard 2 A7, latest variation of Leopard 2s. But even with the increased armor, by the way, and the increased protection, these tanks were destroyed. And probably because so many reports lately about destruction of Leopards and these now STRV tanks on the northern sectors of the front line, that I think it's almost inevitable that in coming days we will see additional videos of destruction of these tanks. And well, I guess I was not mistaken when I did made this headline in the morning's video on the update that Kiev is running out of Leopards. It is true, by the way. I don't know how many Leopard 2s, for example, Kiev regime has left, like 5, 10, I don't know. But they definitely are running out of these tanks, and fast. And when it comes to Leopard 1s, I did report in the morning's update that at least for now it seems like about 50% of Leopard 1s that were sent to Ukraine are not in working conditions. And This is one more scandal that European states, Germany and Denmark, didn't up because they are sending basically scrap metal to Kiev regime. And also, by the way, just a few minutes ago, we had reports that some explosions were heard in Kherson region, and well, I guess Russian frontline aviation
Armenians
was
are being
active
ethnically cleansed
again
from Karabakh and they
in Kherson
feel betrayed
direction,
by
which is
Russia.
not surprising.
It's no secret
As I
Russia
said in morning's
benefits from
update, lately
relations with
it's just too
Azerbaijan.
noticeable
Do you think
that Russian Air
pan-Turkism
Force
is a
becomes
threat to
significantly
Russia?
active in, especially in two directions. One is Kherson direction, and second is Ugledar direction. And well, this is not some kind of accident, I believe. Probably Russian forces are when it comes to Kherson region, Russian forces probably are trying to neutralize risks of attempt from Ukrainian side to mass cross Dnieper River. And when it comes to Ugledar direction, Russian forces probably are preparing ground for a Russian offensive operation. In fairly short time, we will probably learn some more about it. And let me check how many. 108 of us are now online in the chat. Once again, greetings to all. Thank you very much for participating in the conversation. And stream is, by the way, 10 or 15 seconds late. OBS does this thing. I don't even know why. But let's continue. So RT is reporting, and by the way, in tomorrow's update I will share some of this information also, because not all members of our community who are interested to see updates are on the stream right now, and probably will have no time to watch. So I will repeat some of this news in tomorrow's update. And this is quite interesting. RT is reporting that Russian military has adapted to battlefield, according to article in Wall Street Journal. Yet again, more and more articles in the Western media, that are partially criticizing Ukrainian side, and partially admitting success on Russian part. And this will continue, I am quite sure, because Western so-called elites probably are approaching point approaching point when they will start little by little distancing themselves from Kiev regime and failures of Ukrainian armed forces. After all, as I said many times before, I'm quite sure Ukraine will be divided between its neighbors. That's how this conflict gonna end. And to do so, to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine, the so-called Western elites do need some reasoning, and they are preparing that reasoning also. And let me check some if I see some questions. Or I did see, by the way, so we have a comment on donation alert. Yelena Vasilyevich, that's, sorry if I didn't pronounce correctly. So I will read the comment. This comment is supposed to appear on the screen, by the way. I cannot see it, but it's supposed to appear on the screen. and I will read it anyway. Now, so Armenians are being ethnically cleansed from Karabakh, and they feel betrayed by Russia. It's not secret. Russia benefits from relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey. Do you think pan-Turkism is a threat to Russia? Well, let me Elena, disagree with you in part of opinion of residents of Nagorno-Karabakh, because today, for example, I did see some videos from Nagorno-Karabakh, and we will talk about situation in South Caucasus region just in a few minutes. So I did see those videos where Russian forces, Russian peacekeeper forces were protecting Armenian residents that decide to flee Nagorno-Karabakh, and Armenians were basically thanking Russian peacekeepers for providing security for them. So I don't think Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh are blaming Russia for anything. I'm quite sure in opposite, residents of Nagorno-Karabakh, and by the way, I did not have on my hands any studies, studies on this topic. I don't think anyone has at this point, but from what I read in media and on different pages, by the way, in Russian segment of internet, residents of Nagorno-Karabakh most likely will blame Pashinyan, current Prime Minister of Armenia, and his government, because if anyone did portray Nagorno-Karabakh, it's Pashinyan and his government, because I did spoke about it many times before, but let me highlight once again that in order to intervene in this, in any conflict, by the way, Russia do needs some legal basis for it, isn't it? Armenia, or government of Armenia, never recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as an independent state, even though Karabakh itself, Stepanakert, which is the capital of Artsakh, did declare independence from Azerbaijan decades ago. And Armenian government has all these decades, all this time on its hands, including Pashinyan's government, by the way, to recognize independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, and then conduct some referendum in that territory. And if majority of residents will vote to join Armenia, well, Karabakh could become part of Armenia. That's a legal frame, how it supposed to be done and how it was possible to be done according to even UN charters, by the way, because UN charter recognized not just territorial integrity of states, but also rights of people on self determination, self-governing. Sorry for my English. And by the way, Russian side, for example, when it comes to new regions, did act exactly as UN Charter said. Initially, there was referendums on the ground for independence, and once the independence were declared, then again referendum to join Russia. And only after that, Russia did accept will of did recognize will of people on these new regions, and only after that these regions become part of Russia. And by the way, also Constitutional Court of Russia did work on these topics to make sure that all steps are done in accordance to legal means. So when it comes to actions of Yerevan, capital of Armenia, we did not see any of these steps being made. Never. Just never. And if Pashinyan himself just recently did recognize with his sign, by the way, on one of the agreements with Baku, that Nagorno-Karabakh is a part of Azerbaijan, then all the military operations that Baku did conducted was on its own soil, isn't it? Armenia itself was not under attack. Azerbaijani forces did not enter Armenia and did not declare war on Armenia. So what should Russia do in this situation? What? Armenia and Russia both are members of ODKB. Let me give you English translation for ODKB. It's CI something. So where is English? Так, на английском. Oh, CSTO, by the way. Yes, that's it. CSTO. So both countries, Armenia and Russia, are part of CSTO, and not just that, but both countries have a treaty of mutual protection, and Russia is obligated to protect Armenia if it's under attack. But as I said, Azerbaijani forces did not declare war on Armenia and did not attack Armenia proper, let's say. So that's why I'm quite sure residents of Nagorno-Karabakh will blame for everything that happened regime of Pashinyan, but people in Armenia proper that are under propaganda of Pashinyan and his government or media that are controlled by them, they may blame Russia, and they do blame Russia for everything without asking questions. For example, why Pashinyan's government did not recognize independence of Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh. So, I mean, everyone is blaming Russia for everything nowadays, you know. Not everyone, but I mean, it's you know. And when it comes to relationships between Russia and Azerbaijan, or Russia and Turkey, yes, Moscow has good relationships with or working relationships with Ankara, and good relationships with Azerbaijan. And why it's bad? I mean, why it's bad? Pashinyan also could have a good relationship with Moscow, but let's be clear. He was and he is a Western asset. He has connections with the Soros, his funds, and he is a former journalist, isn't it? And during his journalistic times, he was, receiving money from Soros funds, from, I guess, from USAID and some other Western funds that are used to bribe, basically, directly or mentally, some people all around the world. And Pashinyan, for me personally, it was obvious from very beginning that Pashinyan is asset of Western so-called elites, and he will be used to distance Armenia from Russia, and eventually to create some military bases of NATO or US in Armenia, which is neighboring with Iran, by the way, which is a whole another topic, and I will talk about this also if they will be interested about it. And when it comes to good relationships between any countries, by the way, I don't see why it's bad. In this case, between Russia and Azerbaijan, or Russia and Turkey, I mean, Russia is willing to have good relationships with Armenia also, but look at the steps that Pashinyan's government is conducting. Is it friendly towards Russia? And look what kind of statements Pashinyan was making, not just now or in recent weeks, but for recent years even. So once again, we have 113 members of our community on live stream. I welcome all I welcome all of you, dear friends. And please tell me which time was more convenient for you. Before we will talk about some other topics, please tell me which time is more convenient. Maybe 11 by Moscow time is too late. Maybe like 4 o'clock is optimal time. Just help me to understand which time is best to conduct these live streams. So let me check here. No questions in donation alerts. So let's go in the chat. And yes, Belikov Dmitry is writing that STRV 122's armor is like Leopard 2A7. Yes, I was told today about this. I did not knew such details, by the way, but it's good to know. And let's see if any question. So Sea of Kronos is asking, any true in the Bundeswehr tank crew story? Well, dear friends, RIA Novosti is one of the major news agencies in Russia. So if we take in account this, you tell me, will this agency, which is once again one of the major news agencies and state-run, by the way, will this agency risk its reputation for no reason? I don't think some military personnel just called news agency and said that we just destroyed some tank and there were some German crew in it. It did not work like that. I grew up in news agencies, by the way. I was working in news agencies entire my active career in journalism. And I know for sure it does not work like that. Some people may call and said that they have some information, but before you write about this information, anything, you will check that information once, twice, 3 times, 4 times to make sure that whatever you are going to write now, it's legit information. Without checking, you are not publishing anything, because otherwise it's not journalism. And that's why when I read that information, I find it very disturbing at one hand, and of course interesting. And that's why I did share this information with you. And next step, I guess, because this information was exclusive for RIA Novosti, I guess next steps or possibility that we will receive some additional news depends on what kind of decision will be made by Kremlin. Because yet again, if Bundeswehr's members are operating on the ground, this is act of war, by the way. No other way around it. And me personally, I hope that's mistake. I hope entire this story is somehow mistake. I hope that's the case, but yet again, one of the biggest news agencies, very important story. I'm quite sure they did check this information. Will they publish something without checking? I don't know, man. And now, I mean, what reaction Moscow should have on this development? We don't really want to see escalation, military escalation between Russia and NATO member states, isn't it? We don't want to see that, because it's gonna be end of this world. So that's why in morning's update I did mention several times that I find it difficult to understand why these Western elites, so-called elites, are risking that much, provoking Russia on almost on daily basis now, with their participation in this conflict, active involvement in this conflict. So I hope that information is mistake, but same time I'm afraid RIA Novosti will not publish without checking that kind of news. So let me check here. Well, I did see some questions. Yelena Vasilovich also writes, what do you think about pan-Turkism?
TR and Az's strategic plans? Do you think this isn't conflicting with Russia's and Iran's interests?
Asian republics are included.
NATO is trying for a ceasefire. Lavrov
do you
already
think
said
this
no.
is not
Will they be
conflicting
able to
with
pressure Russia by
Russia's
causing
and
problems
Iran's
with
interests?
Russian allies and neighbors?
First of all, thank you very much, Yelena, for donations and for questions. Well, I see logic that that you are developing, and I will agree with the opinion that further increase of influence of Turkey, let's say in Central Asian republics or in Turkic-speaking republics inside the Russia, and there are several Turkic-speaking autonomies in Russia. I think that may be including it some risks in the future. I think when it comes to Russia, there are, by the way, several Turkic-speaking republics, autonomous republics in Northern Caucasus region, and also Tatarstan, by the way, is a Turkic-speaking republic, and not just. And well, when it comes to Russia, I don't see Ankara in a position to escalate with Russia by provoking some internal conflict. It's going to be too risky for any government for Turkey itself. So I don't think any government in Turkey will go for such provocation. But when it comes to Central Asia, by the way, picture is completely different in my understanding, because in that case we are talking about interests of Western world, and I guess Turkey is providing Turkey is operating on behalf of let's say UK mainly, and also US, and I will tell you why. I will tell you why I think so. Let me look at this map, by the way. So this is, by the way, Central Asian republics: Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and of course Kazakhstan, biggest republic. Biggest republic of Central Asia, and several republics, by the way, including Kyrgyzstan, including Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan are bordering China. They are bordering China, northern western parts of China, as you can clearly see here on this map. It's a little bit difficult to see borders. But here we can clearly see that these republics are bordering China, and my understanding is that maybe Western so-called elites or London, for example, is trying to use Turkey for increase their influence in these republics, Central Asian republics that are bordering with China, and at some point maybe destabilize these republics. So that some uncontrolled areas will be established on the borderline, on the border regions of these republics with China, and then, for example, some extremists will be sent in these areas from, let's say, Syria, and And in Syria, in northern parts of Syria, as we all know, Turkey is controlling situation in Idlib province, and it's not secret, by the way, that among terrorist organizations that are operating in Idlib province, there are among members of those terrorist organizations, there are hundreds and possibly thousands of Uyghurs and some other ethnic minorities of China that can be used by Western so-called elites to be sent in these Central Asian republics for further infiltration in China and destabilization of these northern western regions. I hope I did explain myself or my reading of big picture well enough. So in this regard, I did see some dangers, even serious dangers, by the way, for entire region. For entire region, increase of Turkish influence, because this influence probably will be used by London and Washington for their geopolitical games against China, and eventually, by the way, Central Asian republics will be devastated. And if that's the case, then of course it's a danger for Russia also, not just for China but for Russia also, because any destabilization of any bordering areas is a problem for everybody, isn't it? So I hope I did explain myself in that regard. I did see some risks in increase of influence of Turkey. And by the way, let me also read one question. Andrea is asking, NATO is training for a ceasefire. Lavrov already said no. Will they be able to pressure Russia by causing problems with the Russian allies and neighbors? Well, I did speak in this morning about statement of Lavrov when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, and Lavrov did mention that it seems like Western so-called elites want Ukrainian issue to be resolved on the battlefield, and they will get exactly that. This issue will be resolved on the battlefield. Basically, Lavrov did not say no to, and Andrea, thank you very much for donation and the question. And well, to continue, I don't think Lavrov said that Moscow is against negotiations. What Lavrov did said is that behind these political games, reality is different, and reality is that Western so-called elites want this Ukrainian crisis to be resolved on the battlefield, because yet again, I may be mistaken, by the way, but my reading of picture is that Western so-called elites at this stage probably are more concentrated on disintegration of Ukraine, to make sure that at least Western parts of Ukraine will become under control of NATO member states, and the rest of the Ukraine will be controlled by Russia. That's a picture, I think, that Western so-called elites are working on right now. And to achieve this, they don't need political solution. They need situation on the battlefield to be resolved militarily, because only in that case Russia will establish full control over the main part of Ukraine, with the exception of these western regions. So on the stage, Blinken or any other diplomat of the Western states can say anything really, but in reality, what we see on the ground, that's what really matters. And what we see on the ground is that almost on daily basis we are receiving information that some additional weapons going to be sent to Kyiv regime today, some additional by US, some additional weapons by Canada, some additional weapons and money by Germany, UK, and so on. And this is unstopping. So if they want peace, then why they are escalating this and aggravating into this situation? So, and when it comes to forcing Russia, I don't think at this point, I don't think there should be any doubts that Western so-called elites cannot force Russia to do anything, really. They just cannot. It seems like, you know, when Soviet Union collapsed, former Soviet republics began their reforms. They did change very significantly. If you know someone who was visiting Russia, for example, or any other republic of former Soviet Union in 90s, and if very same person was in Russia in recent years, let's say, or in former Soviet republics, peaceful ones, ask him, is there any difference? It's like I don't know, man. It's like two different worlds. That's how significantly situation and countries have been changing for these decades. But while Russia, for example, were reforming itself and working on self-improvement to be competitive in this very, very difficult times and difficult world, US and the Western world did not change even slightest. They just did not change, and seems like this is the major problem right now for the West, because they are operating in the very same how should I say, in very same construction or very same operational principles that they were operating during the Cold War. But it's no longer Cold War, by the way. And right now we are seeing situation when, for example, US military-industrial complex cannot, I mean, they have overwhelming control over their politicians, let's say, in US. And one of the reasons they have such overwhelming control is that this military-industrial complex, companies in it, have their assets almost in every state in US. And if they are not receiving orders for additional weapons, then these assets gonna shut down one by one, like it happened, by the way, in Russia. When Cold War era ended, many plants in the military-industrial complex shut down or reformed themselves to began to produce some civilian products. And who was successful did survive, but who was not that successful just vanished. But this reform never happened in the Western world, isn't it? Especially in the US. And they need to reform their system. And they cannot, because they are afraid, because if they not began to shut down these plants all around the US, because they don't really need that many weapons to be produced, then we have a situation on our hands when locals are against politicians, when locals are not happy, and they may not vote for people that military-industrial complex wants to have in the Congress or Senate or White House. So it's a very difficult situation that West is in right now, especially US. When situation in Russia quite different, quite the opposite, really. And you can clearly see it in last, let's say, 15 to 18 months since the beginning of special military operations, when private companies become actively involved in production of weapons. Private companies, because before special military operation, these private companies were producing some civilian stuff. But now, because there is demand, they are beginning to produce some military weapons, and once this conflict will end and there will be no demand for that many, let's say, drones and so on, these companies will continue to produce whatever civilian products they were producing. So Russian economy is flexible. It's much more flexible than, let's say, US economy. And when it comes to pressure, I mean, how are you going to pressure such a state? And by the way, we went through 90s. We went through 90s, and if you did not live in former Soviet republics during the 90s, I mean, it will be difficult for me and for anybody to explain how difficult that time was, how uneasy that time was just to survive. And we did go through that time, so you're not gonna scare society here, isn't it? I mean, when it comes to Western world, to Western so-called elites, they're not gonna crush Russian economy, they're not gonna scare society in Russia, because we did see some harsh times, by the way, and you know, and well, what else they can do to influence neighbor states? They may try. Look at the Armenia, by the way. Look at the Armenia. They are pulling out Armenia from a close strategic partnership with Russia. And is Armenia in a good place right now? I don't think so. And for example, let's take a look at Georgia. By the way, for decades, Western elites had a 100% grab on Georgia, and they were distancing Georgia from Russia and escalating between Georgia and Russia constantly. And did Georgia gain anything from that? No, country was devastated. And now, first time since the collapse of Soviet Union, by the way, Georgia has a proper government, adequate government. And what this government does? They are trying to somehow rebuild relationships with Russia and use these good relationships with Russia to enhance Georgian economy, to make sure that Georgian citizens are in a better place and more secure. And eventually, I guess Armenia will go through very same road. They will distance themselves from Russia, and eventually, in a decade's time or 2 decades time, they will realize that, well, they need to have good relationships with Russia. So I hope I did answer to the question. How long is this video, by the way? It's 63 minutes. It's more than an hour, by the way. And well, before I continue with questions, let me share with you one interesting news. This afternoon, by the way, we did receive confirmation that Russian armed forces did establish full control over the Dubovo-Vasilievka, или Orekhovo-Vasilievka, sorry, Orekhovo-Vasilievka settlement, Orekhovo-Vasilievka settlement, and let me show you on the map that settlement. I did spoke about it during the morning's update. I did mention that according to some reports, Russian forces conducted rapid offensive operation in direction of that settlement. And this afternoon we did receive confirmation about this, and this is it, by the way. This is the settlement Orekhovo-Vasilievka, which is under full Russian control right now. So despite expectations of some military experts that it's going to be Ukrainian forces who will conduct local-scale offensive operations on the northern flank of Bakhmut, in reality, at least for this moment, it's Russian forces that are moving forward, and this settlement is under full Russian control for this moment. And of course, if there will be any updates I will share in tomorrow's first update about it. And well, let me once again check if there is any questions, and then I will share with you some additional news, if I may. So Flick is asking, Levan, where else do you think the West will start up a coup or conflict? Oh, that's interesting question. We have several potential hotspots. It's Serbia and Kosovo, situation around these states. It's Southern Caucasus region, of course, and not just Armenia and Azerbaijan or Nagorno-Karabakh, but Georgia is under risk also, by the way. And I'm afraid this autumn there will be some disturbances in Georgia, and Washington will try once again to destabilize this republic, to conduct some regime change. Also, let me think. Well, there may be some attempt to destabilize Belarus, but for now, at least, I think Belarus is quite secure. Quite secure. We should always keep in mind that several thousand Wagner fighters are located still in Belarus, although main part of Wagnerites are now on the southern sectors of front line in Ukraine and in several countries in African continent. Where else? There may be some coups in Africa. We did see lately regime change operations in several states. But once again, I'm afraid when it comes to neighboring areas to Russia, I'm afraid the next hotspot will be Central Asia. And if you remember, a few days ago I did report that Biden had a meeting with presidents of Central Asian republics, and formally they did discuss some energy security topic, but in reality, who knows what was discussed, and I'm afraid Kazakhstan are under risk, Kyrgyzstan is under risk, Tajikistan also. So Central Asia can be next target. Central Asian republics that are bordering China, by the way, maybe next target for Western so-called elites. Let me check. Question. Golden Sun is writing that we have a pretty decent anti-war coalition in Michigan. Nice to hear that there is anti-war movement. Ruth is writing, it's not to me. So let me check here. So dear friends, before I continue to answering some questions, let me share with you some additional news that you may find interesting. It's also about Southern Caucasus region, but well, this is also going to be interesting. So TASS News Agency has reported that U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, who is a Democrat from Arizona state, did made statement that in next few years it's gonna be quite high risk that Russia and US will end up in direct military confrontation. Well, I will disagree with the US senator. I want to believe that Moscow and Washington will manage to deal with the issues without provoking full-scale war between each other, because it's gonna be devastating, by the way, not just for two countries but also for entire world. Lately, many very extreme statements have been made from just every side. Maybe for clickbaits, who knows? I don't know. There may be some local scale clashes, by the way. There may be some local scale accidents between Russian and US forces, for example, in Syria, or maybe even in Ukraine, when NATO member states will try to establish control over the western regions of that failed state. But I don't believe even for a second that there can be full-scale war between Russia and US or NATO. It's I just don't see indicators for that. No. Very different game, very different geopolitical game have been played very before our eyes, in my understanding, and this conflict in Ukraine is a part of this game, which is not about Russia, really. It's about China and Western domination. And one day maybe I will devote live stream to discuss what kind of games can be played by Western elites. But right now, let me continue with some other news. And TASS news agency, by the way, did report that Russian peacekeepers did provide safe passage and security for Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh when they did try to flee towards Armenia. And also quite interesting news. TASS news agency is reporting that chairman of Security Council of Armenia may have a meeting with the aid of Azerbaijani president in Brussels, by the way, on 26th of September. And one of the major topics during their meeting will be preparation of the meeting of the heads of Azerbaijan and Armenia, which may take place on 5th of October in Spanish city of Granada. So basically, Pashinyan's government is preparing ground to sign a peace treaty with Azerbaijan and end this crisis with Nagorno-Karabakh. And Nagorno-Karabakh itself will become a part of Azerbaijan and will be fully integrated in Azerbaijan in upcoming years. At the beginning, Baku may allow Stepanakert to have some sort of autonomy in Karabakh, but eventually I think Armenians who will decide to stay in Nagorno-Karabakh will only have a cultural autonomy, and even that is under question, in my understanding, if a majority of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh will flee this region. It's definitely tragedy, by the way, what is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. This region, Armenians did live in this region for who knows how many centuries, and now they are forced to flee this area, which is well, it's tragedy, by the way. It's tragedy what is when conflicts are erupting between the sides, when these conflicts are based on ethnicity, especially. It's a scary stuff. It's scary stuff. Well, you tell me, by the way, this Karabakh deal did not even end yet, and Pashinyan's government is ready to conduct negotiations with Aliyev and sign some agreements. Why otherwise they have to have any meeting? And Pashinyan himself will have a meeting with Aliyev, president of Azerbaijan, on 5th of October. And by the way, one more news that you may find interesting when it comes to Armenia. TASS news agency did report today that National Security Service of Armenia made a statement that they did arrest several people that were planning to conduct some armed provocation and basically regime change in Armenia. How convenient, isn't it? How convenient. I guess it's only matter of time, and this US controlled regime will use exactly this tactic to neutralize opposition. They will blame everyone in treason, they will blame everyone that they are planning to conduct some regime change and so on, and they will just decimate opposition movement in Armenia. That's what will happen. And I know it because I did see it in Georgia, by the way. I did see it in Georgia, and US embassy is working with very same orders for Armenian government now that they were working in Georgia. But anyway, let me check how many of us on the live stream. 85, 84 people. So I guess it's time to end. It's time to end live stream. Hopefully you will find this stream interesting. I did try to answer to questions that I see, and I did try to share some additional news. And this was good experience, by the way. Once again, I'm with every new stream I'm learning a little more how to operate with these programs, and well, I hope in week or two I will be able to invite guests also. So Golden Sun is asking, Levan, how do you feel about cryptocurrencies? I don't really know much about cryptocurrencies, so I don't really have a strong opinion about it. I do know that it's kind of blockchain and it's difficult to trace or something like that, but I don't have enough information, which is bad, by the way. I should know better when it comes to cryptocurrencies, because I guess it's inevitable future development. It's already plays a big role in almost everyday life. So yes, thank you very much, dear friends. Thank you very much for participating in this conversation, and see you tomorrow.